Hello and welcome to another episode of The.CoolKarnis. This is your host and host Sanjeev Kulkarni. And here we are continuing a conversation with the Iron Man, Deepak Raj. Welcome again, Deepak.
Thanks, Sanjeev.
Wonderful. Let's continue our conversation from where we left it in the first episode. In that journey, we learned about you as Deepak Raj, who converted from being who moved on in the journey from being a very successful IT sales professional or an IT professional into the world of endurance fitness. Your journey from being a marathoner to a triathloner, if I can use that term, to now being an Ironman with 27 Ironmans under your belt. This journey has not been easy. Yesterday was all about learning about that journey. But today, in this one, let's focus a bit more on understanding your entrepreneurial journey, if I could call it that way, with your organization, the Yoska, what you're doing with Ironman in India, and much more. So let's dive straight into that, Deepak. Tell us a bit more about how the journey of Yoska started. And to begin with, if you can tell us what does Yoska mean?
Yoska is a combination of two Sanskrit words, yos and ka. Yos means happy and healthy, but happy and healthy. Sanskrit words tend to have a few, multiple meanings or related ones. So yos means happy. It also means healthy. Ka means body or also the soul part of it. So our vision was healthy body, happy soul, right? Our vision is to, promote that, and the vehicle or the platform I chose was endurance fitness and general fitness because that's my expertise. There are different ways you can stay healthy, get fitter, and stay happy. But we primarily have been looking at that. So, given I had an endurance fitness background, so initially when I started, and even before the Oscar days, I think for a couple of years, I had started initially just coaching around the business. It was called Try a New Life, like try as in TRI, like a triathlon.
Mhm.
And that was primarily from a coaching perspective. That was there for a couple of years and then sort of, evolved towards Yoska and a broader creation of a platform and things. So that's how it started. But the trigger point was that I wasn't finding enough time and balance between, obviously work, family, and my interest in trying to develop the sport in India and trying to get Ironman into India and trying to give people a glimpse of what it can do in terms of a lifestyle, even if it not necessarily everyone takes up the sport, but at least if it can help motivate and inspire a few people to walk, if this in turn helps somebody to walk 4 times a week and 30 minutes a day types, that's sort of the purpose and the objective of sort of starting this entire thing.
Absolutely. And I'll take a minute to do some self promotion here. So, friends, the intent of a long form podcast of this nature, of course, I'm inspired by a lot of them that I have been hearing myself. What I find is the best part of a long form podcast like this is that you can use this exactly at points that Deepak called out right now. So, if you're going out on a walk or if you're going out on a jog, just listen to this. And the other small hack I'll give you all is that maybe switch to a 1.x or a 1.25 speed so that way you don't miss out on the content, but it gets over fast. And just listen to this. It really helps you kind of put yourself in the right frame of mind then. Uh, and thanks for that self promotion bit. Uh, Back to you, Deepak. Thank you. So,
Yeah. So that's where the entire journey started. And once I started to coach a few people, obviously a triathlon was very new in 2013 when I moved out of Infosys. But I had to coach maybe runners, not maybe, I had to coach runners and cyclists and general fitness and anything else because needed something to sort of pay the bills and see if there was. I gave myself 6 months
mhm.
between the quitting Infosys and trying my own things. And given I had a very good support and mentors from Infosys, if at all I had to go back, there was always there. Right? So it never had to. And I mean, quite a few people, I mean, some of those you definitely know, they still keep in touch, right through from Gerard and Reggie and Sriram and people. They were all, and I think in some cases they were like, maybe we should look at taking a 6 month sabbatical and things, right? So they
Right.
were so supportive all the way through to see we understand what you're trying to do. But I always felt taking a sabbatical meant it's just one foot out of the door. And what it means is I'm not going to give it maybe, how much ever I try to. I definitely wanted to give it my entire 100% and things. And if I needed to, I can always go back, right? So that 6 months primarily was just assessing the market and looking at it. And India being such a large country, for me to just spend some time, talking to people and everything else. I mean, all I needed was to coach 50 or 100 people to start with, right? I mean, I say start with, that's good enough with respect to making ends meet and what I wanted to do with respect to that, and slowly build on. Might not be able to match up to the to the ITs and the salaries and things where I was getting, but we had to readjust a few things in terms of our lifestyle between me and wife and my son.
Mm.
But those 6 months gave me enough opportunity, and once I started to coach a few people and there was interest, coaching is one thing, but then as soon as you switch over from a general model to a paid model, that's when you really know whether I'm good enough for the coaching I'm giving, right? It's nice when you're coaching everybody and things, and now when you start saying this is what it'll cost for a month, I could see the difference with all the right intent and everybody. I think it's hard, and that's when I slowly started to see what the model needs to be and what platform and tools I'm using. So that kept evolving, but I had to coach a lot of runners to start with because there were not enough triathletes at that stage wanting to either get coached, and also not enough triathletes doing the long distance formats and things, right? So that was sort of the initial period. And after a while of utilizing general Excel spreadsheets and things, I started to explore other tools which were available for coaching.
Mhm.
And coming from staying 14 years in IT, you start to question tools and platforms and writing a lot of emails to support and saying, why can't you do this and things? So it fell on deaf ears because I'm just one person writing to a very large product company. So that's when I felt needed to build my own platform. So that when it took a little more different trajectory, that in addition to coaching, build my own app-based platform in sort of early 2016 and 2015 types, and that's when the Yoska sort of took form.
Wonderful. So I think interesting story here because you have. I was going to ask this as a question, but you answered it right away. You have really merged what you did the initial 14 years in an IT industry very well into what you're doing here. Because obviously, like you called out, it takes so much selling. When you're offering something free, getting people to subscribe to what you do free itself is a big deal. But then to say that now you got to pay for it is something else. So kudos to you for doing that. That's a sales part seen, but clearly you also brought in the whole digital app and the digital angle into it by creating your own platform. That itself is another entrepreneurial journey, I would say. Uh, but I am tempted to ask a couple of questions, but I'll start with this one first. You have mentioned endurance fitness a couple of times. Can you unravel that a bit more for us? What is, I mean, probably I wouldn't say I understand fitness itself that well, but then this is endurance fitness. So what does that entail?
Primarily, endurance fitness is a broad term used for things. Again, when I say racket sport, for example, in that parallel, racket sport could be table tennis, badminton, and tennis and squash and things, right? So it's just a bit of a common word to maybe explain a type of sports. So when it comes to endurance fitness and endurance sports, all of that which need your endurance capability, right? So primarily running. Running is a running by itself, but when you want to utilized to say there is running, there is cycling, there is swimming, there is, I mean, even walking is a good form of general fitness, right? So you do build a good amount of endurance through that. But when you go into multi-sport, like duathlon is a combination of running and cycling, right? So you run, cycle, run in that format.
Mhm.
Triathlon is swim, cycle, run in that format. Aquathon is swim and then run,
Mhm.
right? So there are all of these multi sports, but primarily the common theme is building endurance and endurance fitness. So when you say endurance sports or endurance fitness, all of these things come through.
Why is endurance essential? I mean, sorry for a basic question there, but is it more like having a extended stamina that kind of helps you with something? What is the benefit of that endurance aspect of it? Fitness itself is good, right? So if you're building endurance, how does that help you?
I think number one, if you, for example, look at running for 6 kilometers as opposed to doing sprint work and just doing 2 or 3 kilometers, both of them burn a certain amount of calories, right? But one of them demands a lot more out of you. What you could do that day, let's say you do a very hard, intense workout of that nature, whether it is on the gym or high intensity training or anything of that, for you to be able to back it up again the next day is a little bit going to be a bit harder. But when you just look at endurance fitness type of sports, you could go on an easy run, next day a little more of a medium run, you could cycle the next day, you could swim, you could sort of have a bit of a variety and things. But like you also rightly identified, the duration you spend working out can be expanded or lengthened without you getting too strained or stressed from a perspective of intensity wise. You keep the intensity down, you increase the time. That way you get to train, towards a certain goal. Because if you want to run a marathon or a half marathon, you don't need to run a marathon to stay fit. You
Mm,
could walk, you could just do a bit of running and put through. But at some point, the motivation, and I'm sort of, I think I'm answering this in two ways, but let me stay to the part of endurance fitness is something which you can spend more time. The intensity is usually, moderate. There
mhm,
will be occasionally going up, but I would say 70% of your workouts are done in very aerobic stage, just something which you can sustain for a long time, be it swimming, cycling, running, or any of these multi sports. That's one. But the other angle to look at it is in terms of how you burn your calories and things. It also helps you as you do longer workouts. Your body goes into fat burning zone a little more compared to things, because it takes X amount of time before your body can then go into a fat burning zone. So you will notice better benefit in that. But another key thing is when it comes to any things, you can actually write out a goal and go after a race, right? As even though you're very self motivated, you want to walk, you want to run every day, you want to do things, but saying, "Hey, I want to run my first 10K, I want to run my first half marathon, I want to run my marathon," progressively some goals that keeps you going. So one of the reasons why endurance fitness is sort of a little more addictive and people tend to stick on a little more is one, their progression is there. Two, they can sort of stay in touch with the sport a longer time
mhm.
and go after goals and races.
Keep going one goal after the other. Uh, for me to understand, for our viewers as well, uh, would you say that endurance fitness is for everybody, or you have a way of identifying who this works best and therefore kind of select who you want to coach?
No, we don't have any from a perspective of we coaching. I mean, the only thing we have a prerequisite when it comes to triathlon is do you can you swim 25 meters? Because we can't teach people swimming from scratch because of the model we have, which is primarily app based with a few coaches on the ground. Right. So we've taken a thing to say you need to at least know basic swimming of a one lap, 25 meters. 25 meters can be, however, good, bad, ugly on that stroke part. Don't worry, we'll fix it, we'll train you. But to answer your question, there is no, we don't put a prerequisite. But
Mm,
coming to the broader question of can anyone step into endurance fitness? Absolutely. Can start with walking, go into an easy jog and take up running, take up swimming, cycling, any of these sports. You can just maintain it as a lifestyle. You
mm,
don't necessarily need to do Ironman triathlon races or a marathons, right? There are lots of people. Usually the race is more like a reward
mm,
or, a bit of a things which keeps you going that, hey, I worked hard. Now I reward myself and it's a good milestone to go through because it's the training which makes you fitter, right? Not the race,
mm,
right? One thing people have to remember, and I tell that sometimes where for whatever reason, due to some personal reason, they couldn't do a race and they feel a bit disappointed. I tell them, yeah, I understand. You would have loved to do that race as a for all the hard work you've put in, but your fitness hasn't gone away because you didn't do the race,
okay.
right? So I enjoy the training more than the race, right? The race helps to keep myself, but I don't need to race just to keep myself motivated for tomorrow morning, right? But it helps for quite a few people.
Absolutely.
So that's the way it works.
Absolutely. So the message I'm getting is that endurance fitness is really anybody can take it on. It probably doesn't mean that it has to culminate into a race, or that's not what it is.
So
But we can individually set up the kind of goal that we want as either what we want to achieve or reward and so on. But clearly, I'm not into this sport, Deepak. So some of my questions might sound basic, but as I'm kind of experiencing this journey from my own experiences or the way you explained it yesterday, it seems like there is a continual new high that you kind of keep looking to aspire, right? Each time, probably you're trying to aspire something you have never done before. How does the body react to this? I mean, when you're actually in the race, there could be a certain adrenaline rush in your body. But how does your body react to this? Like, does your body kind of say that, hey, look, this is enough, you're stretching yourself? Or how does it work?
usually the body tells you, but the mind doesn't. Mind people tend to. There's a lot of peer pressure when it comes to. Let's say you take up running. Okay, you run your first 5K or a 10K. Suddenly everyone's thinking, hey man, let's do a half marathon. So there's a good part, right? Progression, motivation, and things. But I think you also need to ask yourself to say, are you ready for the half marathon now? Do we
Hmm.
understand what it takes? And are you giving yourself enough time
Hmm.
just to avoid the burnout? Because the body will tell you you're not ready, but maybe they just succumb to the fact that there's a lot happening. It'll come together. There are a bunch of people doing the same race. Let me go after,
Hmm.
right? I think each of them need to be on their own timeline, right? It's great to have a common goal and everybody train together,
Hmm.
but let that not override the fact that are you personally ready? Maybe you cannot put the same time as what the other people in your cohort are able to put,
Hmm.
right? Maybe they have been running for a few more months or years than you, right? So and your starting point was different, right? So that's important. But yes, you don't need to keep progressing, right? You can just stay in 10K and say, I ran 10K in 65 minutes. Can I maybe run it in 60 minutes? That it's also a progression of goal.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily have to always increase the distance of your race from 10 to half to full, and at some point, what? Then ultras and things, right? That's when the body's demand and how it happens and things start to, put through. So, one word of caution is if you think you're ready mentally and physically, go after it.
Hmm.
But don't forget the reason why you took that up. You did not take it up to run a 100-kilometer ultra. You took it up because you like it. It helped you stay fit, stay healthy. It made you happy. You look forward to it. It brings a certain energy, right? So please go back to what I call, if I can use the parlance of first principles, right? So these are the reasons why we people get into any sport or team sport or fitness or anything else. Don't forget that, because at some point I've seen people either they burn out, they get injuries, or in some cases they take on more stress than the whole idea behind coming here, right? So they're like, oh man, I have to do this, and somebody else is training 3 days a week, but they're getting better. Now, that's not why you got into the sport and things, right? So this shouldn't add stress to it. This should actually unwind,
Correct.
right? Now, that's something I've seen fair amount, unfortunately, and we try to course correct a few people, but yeah, there's a fair amount of things on that front which I think people need to pay attention.
So there's just thought coming to me as you're mentioning this. I mean, of course, it's a sport, so there is a certain amount of competition. But uh, I mean, this is a bit raw in my head, so kind of bear with me as I explain this. But is it right to say that, look, in a way, while you're competing with others, but this is really about competing with yourself, and don't try to kind of push yourself too hard that your body cannot kind of sustain it or something, right? I know this is a bit raw sounding, but I hope I was able to
Uh,
explain it right.
no, I think you're spot on with respect to you got in because you wanted a better version of yourself. That's the way I look at it,
Correct.
right? I want to be a better version of myself tomorrow by taking some step, whether I'm sleeping better, eating better, doing a bit of workout, whatever it is, right? Now, if that's your primary goal, just focus on the process of getting there and you'll get there,
Mm.
right? So no need to go after a goal because there is, I mean, if nothing wrong in writing your goals and going after big goals, staying competitive, all that, but Just be measured and moderate that based on what's around you. Do you have the right time to do that? And is your body listening to it? Sorry, are you listening to your body? And take your time to get there. As long as you're enjoying the lifestyle, is it sustainable? Absolutely, then go after.
Absolutely. And thanks for educating us on this, Deepak. Uh, but with your permission, I want to raise a point. Um, Recently, you had put up on LinkedIn about your last Ironman, your 28th Ironman race. Are you okay to tell us and talk to us a bit about it? What happened?
Happy to.
So clearly, you did not finish, and I'm sure having done 27, I can only imagine what would have run through your mind when you had to take that harder decision. But I'll ask a two-part question, if you may. First is, when you have done 27, you have a certain amount of confidence that you are riding on. You have heard your body give you messages so many times. What is it that the message that your body gave you this time was so different that you decided that no, enough is enough and I have to stop this? So that's part one of the question. Part two is a bit of, the barrage. If you can just walk us through a barrage of emotions that you went through, that will really help us understand, because I think there's a good message here for all of us.
Yeah, no, I think going into the race, I mean, I usually stay active all through the year as opposed to there's a race coming up, let me start getting active. But definitely the last few years from a work perspective has taken its toll with respect to how much I'm able to train or how much I still train all through the year. And the demands of the Ironman training are always a lot more. But even in my past few races and things, I've managed to, and you race to the condition and the potential you have on the day, right? What I mean is, I might have been really fit in 2014, 2015, and things like that, but if I'm not that, you race on the day on the conditions anyway, right? If it gets hot, just because it's got hot, you doesn't actually mean you can still run at the same pace. You have to control, right? If your heart rate goes up. So there are lots of things which you race as per the conditions, but you also race as per the training you have done. So that's something I've always done. And this race also, I was very clearly focused on making sure I approach it that way. But the lead up to that, I was chasing a very large portfolio, increasing our portfolio, a large one, and the lead up onto the race was a lot of travel, a little bit of jet lag, but mostly no sleep. And even including the 2 or 3 days leading up to the race, I think there was a severe lack of sleep, including the overnight one thing. So I told myself, well, I'm going to assess myself and go through a bit of a mental checklist. Every 30 minutes to 60 minutes to say, am I good? Simple question. Am I good? That's all you need. Can't go through anything more, and obviously keeping a view on vitals and things like that. And that's something I anyway promise myself and my family in before any race, right? At any point, if I don't feel right, yeah, there'll always be, you can fight another day. So this day started out pretty all right. I felt all right at the beginning. So I said, you know what, let me have a go, and started the race, did the swim, felt good in the swim, started the ride, felt good in the ride, nutrition, hydration, everything feeling okay. But as it came towards sort of the 100K mark, I could feel myself getting weak. Now, you can feel weak in an Ironman at different points. It's a very long day, and but if you've been taking proper nutrition, if you've been taking care of yourself and being as disciplined as you can be, and having done that a few times, and you're still feeling weak or it's not feeling right, so that's when, okay, at the 120 kilometer mark, I said, all right, I'm going to ask myself another question in 30 minutes and 60 minutes and take a harder look, and then started to pay more attention to how I was feeling. Somewhere at the 140K mark, and I knew there's an aid station coming up, which will also means there will be a medical personnel during every aid station. It's there only every 25 to 30 kilometers or every 15 kilometers, 15 to 20 kilometers apart. So at the 145-kilometer mark, I pulled over to the aid station and walked over to the medicals and sort of said, don't feel all right. I wanted them to also look at it and check out what they think and they ask you the usual questions. I've been asked this before, in a few more races to say, what's your name and what's the date? And they want to make sure that you're not off the things, right? So those were some basic questions. Then a full vitals. And I just said, look, I don't feel right. Having done this a few times, this I've not been in this position. I need to differentiate between just being a low point, mind being down, and just have to pick yourself up and go through, which I've done a lots of times, right? Now I had to differentiate that versus this. I just didn't feel right that this is not just another low point for that long, right? Which means I usually can, pick myself up through whatever positive affirmation, thinking about it, and whether it's a goal or whether it's thinking about family, keywords, and being grateful of being on the day. There are lots of ways. People have different ways to affirm themselves and pick that and replace any negative thoughts in the mind with positive ones. It did that a few times, but I was still feeling weak and I could see my speed dropping off and things like that. So that's when I stopped and spoke to the medicals. They looked at vitals and they said, look, there's nothing we see that that we need to tell you to stop or anything. It's your call. It's your call. That's all they said. Because but they are doing their duty. If they feel it's not right, they will tell you. But at the same time, they don't force you to say hey and things, right? So they just basically do an assessment and tell you their views and put that. I still didn't feel right, and I thought riding another 30 kilometers and then starting to run and think maybe your legs will come good. I've done those type of races too in the past. You feel like you feel really bad after the cycling and you have to run 42, and after a few kilometers your legs come good and you get that back. I was thinking maybe this is that day, right? Maybe I'll get it. But after going through a lot of things in my head and things felt not right, and I decided to stop.
Wow, that's a. I mean, I can, as I'm trying to put myself into your situation and think through. There's one part of which says that, look, you've done 27, so fine, there's nothing to lose. But I'm sure that's not how your mind would have thought of. It's a big decision to take, and I'm glad in a way that you listen to your body, you listen to your mind, and it gave you the right and sensible advice on that day. Uh, what happened after that? I mean, I know that in that moment, Deepak, you kind of thought of it, and you listened to your mind. But just curious, I mean, does that kind of stick in your head? Does that thought ever come to you again, or you have kind of just brushed it and you're looking at the next?
It's because it's a first time and first time of having a DNF, whether it was a 5K run or a 10K run or an Ironman, right? So it's there is a first time for everything. But yeah, there's no oh, I should have, or what if. Now I think at that point what it is, you just need to look forward, right? And the what ifs could have been very different. As one part tells you, maybe it was just a low point in you finishing the race. Now, I've had a lot of low points. This didn't feel like it. I had to listen to my body. I had not slept enough,
Yeah.
right? And the body is, you're demanding a lot out of the body. And it's not right for me to test that boundary. Like you need to go to the edge, but not tip over, right? Now, I felt this was the tipping point. And that's how it was. Now, the what ifs could have been even more scarier than yes, finishing the race is one part of the what ifs, right? And it's just not worth it. Worth it at that time to take the chance, not worth it to spend any time after that to say, what if, and maybe I should have, and things. It's just not worth it. I mean, there is so much more of your life ahead. There's so many more races. I don't think spending any time or energy thinking about that is the best way to channel my time and energy towards it. So we move on. Definitely take that as a way to say, well, next time you're in that feeling, remember what happened, and I need to take the same call again. Right. And actually, so yeah, not thinking too much around it. I don't look at it as doing the next race as redemption or anything like that. It's just a continuation of the journey. That's how I look at it.
So, man, I think the best lesson that at least I'm taking away from this is that anything, regardless of how many times you have done it. You could be a 27-time Ironman uh, finisher, but this could still happen. And the fact that you have analyzed it well and you have said that you know as a lead up what had happened. So it's so important to prepare yourself before anything. In fact, I had one question which I'd forgotten yesterday, so I'll just quickly ask it before we move to the next one. Because there's one thing running in my head, right? Because if you look at maybe some of the other sports, like I'll just take cricket as an example, right? Every match is different because it's pitch dependent. Every pitch is different. You kind of got to strategize around it. You partly answered this year because the thing running in my head was, is Ironman or is triathlon that kind of a sport, or is it more like a basketball? You have the same court everywhere. But if I can state what I understood from you saying, you say that this is still a sport where you have to prepare yourself for every run, because the your own preparation could be different. The weather on that day could be different. The conditions could be different, and you got to tweak yourself according to that on that day. Is that a fair?
Certainly, sir. No, no, no. That's an absolute way because the swim could be in a lake which is nice and calm, or the water could be choppy, as an example. The course could be hilly, like I said, Port Macquarie is hilly, Busselton, Western Australia is
Hmm.
flat as in flat. There are some which get more wind and less wind. The runs could be undulating and things. Kona is very hot versus maybe New Zealand is nice and cool to start with and then gets hotter as the day goes. So
Hmm.
definitely you need to train as per the course in addition to racing on the day based on your conditioning, how you have trained for it versus the course and also the conditions which could change as the day progresses.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing this important part, Deepak. And I know you said that 28th is not going, 29th is not going to be a redemption one, but we wish you the very best to go back to an Ironman with flying colors this time. So, all right. So now we learned about Yoska, we learned about endurance fitness, and I think we need to talk about Yoska's next journey moving into the Ironman India. You had partly started talking about it yesterday, but we'll request if you can walk us through the journey of how that has happened and how that journey has been over the past 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, the event has happened for the last 5 years, but pretty much the journey of trying to talk to Ironman and things started way back in 2013, where the first part was just understanding what is the Ironman, the organization, how do they work, do they come into new countries, regions, what are the models? So that took a bit of a time and started to talk to people and trying to get an introduction to somebody whom I could talk to, right? I mean, putting on a sales ad, it's like one is you can do cold calls, but then a warm introduction also helps, right? Or at least, but you need to understand the client even before you pitch something, right? So quite a bit of time went in that. And every time I was doing a race, I would walk over to the head of Anman Asia, Oceania at that time was also managing some portion of Asia, Jeff Meyer. He put a lot of he's been so supportive and put a lot of trust and faith early on Jeff and Carl and Alice and a lot of people in the early days where I was just one person trying to talk to them, right? So the first few years were pretty much trying to understand that part, then talk to Jeff every time we did a race to say, hey, have you thought about India? What is the direction of Ironman? And then slowly trying to tell him, hey, I'm doing camps, I'm doing clinics. There are others who are organizing events with whom I'm working. There are already a few triathletes. And every passing year and event, getting my own trainees to a race, like, hey, look, it's just not me from India, right? Now there are like 7 or 8 people from India who are coming. Some of them are my trainees, some of them are on their own training, but the sport is growing. Can we start talking? But then we also there is an operational element to it, finding the right spot. Need a good water body which ticks the box when it comes to safety, when it comes to quality of the water. Then a cycling course, then a run course, and the permissions needed by the government to close down, absolutely close down, not like, unlike maybe, in a few other countries where you could assume one lane is for traffic and one lane is for cyclists. You can put a few safety cones in between and expect that discipline to be followed. Unfortunately, in India, I can't take that risk, right? So we have to almost put a hard barricade, close down roads, So it took a lot of those operational elements in the initial years. But the main thing was convincing Ironman that the sport is growing, India is ready, and will get ready to host a race in next year. So can we start talking?
Mm.
Right? I can't. Let's not start talking when everything is ready because it will take almost 2 to 3 years for me to get governments and permissions and investment and everything else. So it took a few years, but starting 2014, 15, 16, these conversations got a little more momentum. Then I had the Ant-Man team visit India, showed them a few places. These are the course. This is what we're looking at, and started to identify a full-fledged of candidate cities. I picked about 8 or 10 across India. I traveled and saw what it could be a host. Then graded them, created a very consolidated report. I think very proud of the consulting report I did to Ironman. Thanks to Infosys and my mentors and managers who sort of help me shape my expertise in that part of creating a pitch. But that consulting report was about where India is, where the sport is growing, what are the candidate cities, why we should choose these three as your first things, and then dig deeper. So that got them to a very serious discussion table, got into agreements, legal. You know how we've negotiated number of contracts legally and otherwise, Sanjeev, in our emphasis days. So all of those things obviously help me. And our bottom-up estimation of what we do in emphasis, I can't. That goes a long way in finding out the event economics portion. So I know every line item as opposed to, well, it'll take this, right? So I think applying all of those things and putting it together and then building a team around it, permissions, government, a lot of things. And then it all came together and, formally signed the contract and did the launch in 2018. And the race happened in 2019. And we've been having that race every year since then.
Congratulations to you, Deepak. That's a very formidable achievement in a way that you have managed to bring a relatively I don't know. I mean, at least I still feel that it's a relatively new sport into the
Very
cricket
new.
crazy Indian world, and that to the top brand who probably had never even had India on their radar for miles together. You managed to convince them and get them there. So many congratulations to you on that. But just a couple more questions on that. So, firstly, you kind of jumped through a lot of that journeys, but would be curious to understand what were the. I mean, you explained how you have to look at the terrain, etc. But you said you had almost about 8 or 9 cities. You don't have to tell us all, but which were the top three, if you can share?
Initially, we thought, why not Mumbai? Because it's a very marketable city and things like that, right? So Mumbai, Goa, a couple of good beaches in Kerala. A lot of those things were initially our things, but then you need to look at right through from hospitality to make sure you have all the way from budget hotels to good hotels. Hospitals, not that's not an issue. Most places have good hospitals across the board, but the beaches and the water body ability for us to host it there, getting it water tested about certain conditions and quality. Immediately around the water body, cycling course, which the government can help me close. Really speaking, this is the crux of that.
I'm
Finding the
sure
suitable
Bombay
water body.
lost it
First,
there.
sorry.
I'm sure Bombay lost it there. Water quality itself would be a fail, I guess.
There were a few, but we had to go a little more interior and again closing down roads and things. But yeah, those were some things. But coming back, Goa had a lot of beaches and we tested water in a number of beaches. Quite a few of them ticked the box, some did not. But finding an immediate cycling course around it, which you can close down, whether it's 30 kilometers or 45 into loops. You need 90 kilometers, but you can do 3 into 30 or 2 into 45,
Hmm.
right? In terms of the cycling loop. So that was the main thing, finding the water body and immediate access to the cycling, which you can close.
Hmm.
Now that's the one which you need to, and you can't create water bodies. You cannot suddenly say that's something. Is it first thing is you test the water body. If it doesn't meet the standards, you move on. You move on to a different beach in the same city, or if you've ran out of beaches in that city or any water bodies of lakes and other things, you move on to a different city,
Sure.
right? So those were some key parameters.
Just curious. So when you say test the water body, Is it by and large consistent throughout the year, or does that change with time or season? Or
Little bit those currents change, some of those based on post monsoon, sometimes the sandbars and a few things change. But quality of the water, yes, there could be some debris and things like that coming to a certain point during the season with a lot of flooding and things like that. But relatively, the quality of the water in terms of the passing through those standards, they relatively stay. Either it meets the standard or it doesn't meet. Right. So that's how it's.
awesome. And without trying to be political about this question, but the government aspect is obviously important. So how did you see the various governments play out? Obviously, each of these states have different governments. The center might have had a consistent government, but the states have different governments. So, would you see a similar, or rather, to ask a question in a different way, do you see that now, over the past 10 to 12 years, has there been an increased focus on sport in a way? Are the governments more receptive? Are they more supportive? Were all governments kind of receptive in that sense?
Most governments have been receptive, but they need to back up that immediate acknowledgement of saying we are keen. Right. One, it takes time, and two, they might not fully process or digest what it takes.
Hmm.
Right. We're saying, hey, we want to bring Iron Man to India. There is interest. They want to talk and look at it. Oh, you want to close down the roads for 6 hours? Now that's the detail,
Correct.
right? So backing that up to say, what do you mean 8 hours? What do you mean full closure, right? So that one is a bit of a learning,
Correct.
right? And then when you start to explain to them and things, either it becomes harder or the decision takes more time, right?
Correct.
And for the right reasons. It's not easy to close down roads. So we know that. I mean, one of the first things when I was trying to bring the sport into India and organize an Ironman in India, quite a few, whether it was brands, investors, and even other things, they said, hey, we've seen these videos, they look great happening in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, US, and all that. But for you to actually close down roads, hard barricade them for that many hours, and to maintain the same standards as a global event, yeah, that's like that's like a pipe dream, so as to speak, right? So people were not, and it was hard. So that was that. I mean, the first event we did not get too much of commercial support, be it from brands or government or others, because there's a lot of skepticism, and for the right reasons in their mind about we able to pull off such an event,
Hmm.
right? So coming back to the government portion, I think most governments were supportive. I would say Goa government stood out a bit more because Ironman is a destination sport, right? So we have participants from 25 countries who will come.
Hmm.
We have people from different places come and stay a few more days after the event and take time. So the tourism angle worked well, and Goa is a marketable city for the internationals, for the brands, and even for the locals as in the domestic crowd of India. So it may take few more boxes compared to a few other cities.
Wonderful. And I think Goa is always an awesome destination place. Overhyped in the current world, I would say, but nonetheless, an awesome destination point to start off with, and it's relatively well positioned that you can kind of, with a couple of extra days, you can kind of cover quite a wide range of things around it. So all the best, all the very best for this upcoming one. Uh, just going on that journey a bit more, though, because you said you started in 2019, and we all know what happened the following 2 years. Did that have an impact on you? How did COVID impact your journey as both Yoska as well as the whole Ironman India journey?
Yeah, I mean, we were trying to pull off the first event with a lot of investment, including sort of personal monies into it. And thankfully, a few investors backed us, but we did not get too many brands or any other commercial support because everybody wanted to see the first event. And we put up a great first event, and we wanted to build on that momentum, right? October 20th, 2019, we did our first event, and we opened up registrations in March 7th or 8th, from what I remember, 2020. I think March 15, if I may remember right, or was it April, is when, I mean, February, March, January, the COVID thing had started to come. And then I remember PM Modi sir coming in and putting India under lockdown. I don't know if it was March 15th or April 15th, but 3 or 4 days into our registration, when we had opened up and we had got some great things, it happened. And then there was absolute, we don't know what next. We
Mm.
don't know how long it was. It was new for everybody. And over that period, it meant we could not do a race, which means there was no sort of revenue, and we couldn't build on the momentum of the first event where brands were now keen to talk to us. But what do you talk when you don't even know whether there is a race happening? And I couldn't just disband the team which I had built, right? So it was about keeping the team, maintaining all the sort of economics part of it and expenses part of it, and keeping that whole payroll team together. But it's almost zero revenue from an event perspective. But we also had another portion of the business, which was our app and training business, which is maybe which was not as much in terms of volume of monies coming in, but we used that to sort of stay afloat. And we just sort of buckled down and said, we're going to tread water. Okay, we're just going to tread water, stay, keep our heads above, and when the time comes right, we'll be more ready, right? So we've invested heavily on improving our sort of processes and things. Focused a lot more with government, relationship building, brands, kept in touch with the community because the community was very supportive with the first race and so on. But yeah, very dark period, definitely, because it was just not a few months, right? 2020, we couldn't do a race. 2021, we couldn't do a race. And there were a few people, and financially, we were hoping to utilize the next year's event. It's more of a cash flow thing, right? So you need to utilize the next year's registrations and things sort of come back, because first year we had to invest a number of crores into the first event, right? So that just broke that chain, and definitely a very big low point as a business, even personally in terms of going through that. But then 2022 we came out and came out stronger. But those two periods, and it also taught us quite a few lessons with respect to how to operate and how to manage a few things, how to be more efficient. So we took those learnings and said, whenever we become big again, we're going to use these as our foundations elements.
So, I mean, I think as they say, never waste a pandemic. It always teaches you something. Clearly, we're getting a message here is that you have come out much more wiser and have learned from that and didn't buckle down. So again, once again, congratulations to you. And at two years of it running successfully, 22, 23, and the next one is coming up this year. So best wishes for that journey too. Some more fundamentals before we move to a next part. Yesterday, you did mention, so I just want to clarify this once again. Ironman is Ironman gender, regardless of gender, right? So women compete in the same, and it's the same. Like the boundaries or the goals, the timings are all the same. Is that right?
Same.
Okay, correct.
Correct.
So, but that said, I just want to understand from you that, and I'm not trying to drive any kind of a gender division or anything here, but I'm just trying to understand that do you see women also becoming more participative in this? How is that journey been? Because I know that I've read it on your website somewhere that you all are driving a few things specifically for women. So how has that experience been?
I mean, the because we train people, looking at India perspective, the participation levels, if it's sort of 12 to 15% women and 85 lots of men, that's not the same ratios we see when we train people.
Hmm.
The ratios are much better. There are a lot more women training, be it running or triathlon and things. But obviously, the race puts a certain demand of the timing portion of it. There is obviously a cost portion. There is also an exactly planning and things like that, right? So we're just trying to see what we could do to help. We can't take away everything of it with respect to the financial portion of staying in the sport, racing, traveling, all that. But yes, but coming into what we are looking to do, we have set ourselves a very large goal in the next few years in Goa to say we want to have the highest women to men ratio of participation of any Ironman race globally. Right? Yes, it sounds ambitious, But yeah, we have to write something on the wall to go after. And I and my team always believe that unless you write something and go after it, we will not be focused enough on that campaign initiative and things. So our goal is, can I get this to 25, 28%? That itself is quite above the global benchmark, so
Mm.
as to speak, from a Ironman races perspective. So that's something we've set ourselves the goal, and we're also looking out for various other ways we can supplement support through brands, through certain women focused campaigns. So we've got women focused women coaches, so that way people are more comfortable getting coached. And we're also putting together and scouting. We even tried something in 22 and 23. We do that every year, is trying to put together a all women team, right? Somebody can swim, somebody can cycle, somebody can run.
Mm.
And we've formed a platform called Let's Relay. Now you can just go out there, put your name out there, and you can look out for partners. You don't have to know them, or if the first time you meet them could be when you land in Goa. But you could talk to each other. You could be a swimmer. You could find, hey man, I could do the swim. Is anyone interested in the cycling? And you can see whether you want to be competitive and say what is your cycling time. Talk on those lines. Train together, come over and do that. So we managed to get about 12 all women relay teams in 2022, right? So through this sort of program in 2023, we've built on it, and even this year. So our focus called Women in Sport is a campaign, getting more people into the sport, at least as a lifestyle, even if they don't race, and whatever support system we can build around it. That's how we're approaching it.
Absolutely. I genuinely believe that women still play a very important role in a family. Uh, Whatever the mother does, you kind of see that kind of pass on to the kids, right? So I think it's extremely important that as a family we start to say stay healthy and fit. But especially if the mothers catch it on, then I think it naturally passes on to the kids. So it's absolutely important to build that healthy lifestyle and a healthy mentality in a way. So more power to you. The relay one, I just wanted to go back on. I'd read that Tejasvi Surya had also, the MP from Bangalore, he had also participated in the
Yes.
Ironman. He did the same relay, isn't it? Uh,
Yes, we did the cycling portion of it, whereas the other two people did the swim and the run. And again, I think at some point, maybe even this year, he's looking to see if he can do a full one. But he's training. If not, so he did the relay, but his next goal is to do an individual, which means do the entire swim, cycle, and run. He's somebody who's it helps. It helps when key business leaders, key politicians, key any other athletes who take up the sport. It just helps to promote the sport, and he has been super supportive along with people with respect to including. Let me take the opportunity to highlight Dr. Pramod Sawant sir from a CM of Goa perspective, the tourism minister Sir Rohan County. Without their support of giving permission to close down roads or commercial support and doing this entire thing, there's no way we can put up the race. I am told there are times where people feel, politicians are involved in the sport for coming into maybe flagging off the race and things like that. I primarily tell people know that the reason we are having a race is because of their support, right? So let's not skirt around the part that's there, especially of a race of this demand when it comes to operations, logistics, commercials, and the government thing, right? So that's been phenomenal support, be it in Goa or locally here.
Amazing. And again, more power, because that kind of leads me to a next question. Because as you said, sometimes it helps to have influential people involved for the sport or for the brand or everything in general. Uh, that kind of leads us to a point that this is a new world in a way, especially what you're trying to do is so much more into an extreme digital kind of marketing. This is probably not how we exclusively ran our marketing back in the days when we were with Infi. Now it's a slightly different world. It's becoming more evolved. But your form of industry is now completely into digital marketing, and you have to use all kind of platforms and forums. How has that journey been for you? Do you still see yourself as a bit more reserved, like the way I knew you, or have you been more open now? Are you more on the social media and active there?
Think I can't let my whatever my personality or whatever stop what I would like to do and support my team, right? So I think my team is very supportive in making sure that one, we need to be active, and two, I need to be active, and I get a lot of good support and initial nudges and things to do, because I don't want that to stop us from getting whatever the team and collectively what we want to do. So definitely that's been a change, but at the same time, I try to maintain sort of whatever my personality is and how those things are primarily, either portrayed in socials and things. We have a team which takes care of that sort of balance to make sure we are out there
Hmm.
without me feeling too uncomfortable or not being particularly on that. I think we found that right balance. The team is there, but broadly speaking, the community, right? Engaging the community, be it on our LinkedIn and Man India handles as an example, or on other socials. That's something which we've been running quite a few good campaigns and content. So definitely I learned a lot in the last sort of 18 to 24 months with respect to how we can channelize some of those things of reaching out to the community. And we've also had to do certain traditional marketings, a little bit of on the ground, and including going after socials, right? Because how many likes you get to a post or how many followership matters. But if those all of those followers are not actively engaged or helping you promote that, then it just becomes another number, right? So we are trying to balance that across by making sure we do a bit of on the ground, obviously online and performance marketing, and at the same time, putting me and all of our coaches out there to speak about what our goals are, what our objectives are, and that in turn resonating with a few people based on the sport is it's a very small community, as you said, it's a very niche sport still
Hmm.
globally, not just in India, right? So it's important that we tap into that whatever network we have very effectively.
Absolutely. Now, there's still a couple more questions that I want to ask, but let's lighten this up a bit. We want to try a little bit of rapid fire with you. Look, it's nice that we have a little bit of a fire background going on there, so we'll do a rapid fire with you. The only rule for rapid fire is that you have to be rapid. You have to give your answers fast, what comes to your mind. But it's going to be a wide range, so let's see how you go with this. All right, street food or home food? Home food. Okay, wonderful. Uh, deathbed food.
Sorry.
Deathbed food. What's that one thing that you will kind of have anytime, anywhere, and would always want to have?
Um, so chocolates.
Chocolates. Not an answer I expected to hear from you, but all right. Any
But
specific
but
chocolate?
as a reward, right? As a reward at something, right? So there are ways I reward myself with food. So whether it's cakes or desserts or things, that's a reward for food. So whether it's and there are some sugar-free options, things like that. So I keep myself there, and but yeah, it's a good reward for a good week and things like that. So food is a reward, whether it's chocolates or cakes or whatever it is.
But since you're talking chocolates, I have to tell you, Deepak, uh, the first time I had Rocky Road as a chocolate, the one made out of marshmallows and chocolate, was actually in Brisbane below our Infi office there. I had never had a Rocky Road before, and probably I don't remember the name of the store or whatever, but they made the best Rocky Roads, man. After that, I've tried to have it wherever I go, and I don't like it, and I've kind of stopped it now, but I still have that taste fresh in my mind. All right. Best basketball team ever. You can split this into two ways. One could be growing up or one now.
Yeah, I think that changes. Chicago Bulls, 90s.
That's it. OG team. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like Stephen Curry and Golden State, but if I have to pick one amongst the other, it's Bulls, Jordan.
So you answered the next question, but I'll ask you anyways. Best OG player of all times.
Michael Jordan.
Has to be Jordan. All right.
Yeah.
Uh, Athlete or entrepreneur?
What I see myself as.
No, what do you like more? Being an athlete or being an entrepreneur? What do you enjoy more?
I enjoy the entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship? Awesome. And that has a longer journey, clearly. Uh, all right. Let's see how you answer this. Bangalore or Brisbane?
Bangalore.
Okay. Germany. I think these are predictable answers. Germany or Australia?
Hmm. In Germany, because the journey started there. I met my wife there, so there are a lot of good things. So Germany.
All right. Germany. Okay. Now, this I hadn't expected, but fair enough. Very nice answer. Now, this next question is going to be a tricky one, and this can be a segue into our next segment. Ironman or HYROX?
I think if I have to pick one, I think I'll pick HYROX based on a few recent my own personal experience of having done Ironman races and HYROX races, and I'm happy to explain that more whenever it is. But yeah, I would pick HYROX.
Absolutely, and like I said, that gives us a segue into the next one. But that was the rapid fire, a very quick one, and I think you surprised us with a few answers, but pretty rapid for sure. The chocolate one was a big surprise for me. All right, so that leads us to Hyrox. Tell us a bit more about that. That's a new addition into the Yoska portfolio, isn't it? So educate us on it.
Yeah, it is. It's a very new sport too, right? I mean, Ironman has been around for 45 years as a sport. Triathlon as a sport has been around for a long time. Ironman is the brand and one which popularized the entire sport. But if you look at High Rocks, it's nothing but a hybrid fitness, which involves running and strength and conditioning, right? So there have been other things. And High Rocks as a sport, as a fitness race, is only 7 years old.
Mm.
And 2 years sort of almost lost out by COVID. So in a way, they've been active in terms of events and participation over 5 years. And I just got introduced when somebody else mentioned about it. It's Saurabh Agarwal, good friend of mine. He was training for High Rocks. He mentioned about it, and then I that's when I just heard about it. I read a bit more, and I even did a bit of a workout together while he was training for it. Then I got a little more interested, read up a bit more, and then he said maybe I should take a little more interest, write to them and things. So thanks to him, I took a bit more interest in that area. And then, like I had done with the Ant-Man journey, I said, just like how I said, hey, I'm Deepak. So it all starts with a cold call, right? So you write to them and things. So reached out to Hyrox, explained myself, and started that journey of writing to them, understanding the sport, and put that. And then it eventuated to a lot of things of the usual process of evaluation, proposals, pitch, and everything else. And they were very supportive and very understanding in terms of what I'd already done with the brand of Ironman, right? Getting the brand to India, nurturing the sport, growing the sport. So the same as a template or a blueprint. And we already had an existing team which was capable of organizing events. So that's when it came, and we're going to be going public and press releases and things in the next week to 10 days, and there will be races starting next year. And Hyrox is something for all of the runners, all of the gym community, because the gym community did not have a sort of a gamified race or a goal.
Mm.
They used to go to the gym to get fitter, to burn calories, to look good, to build muscle, but they did not necessarily have a quantifiable goal to say, okay, this race looks good. Let me finish this in an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes, right? There was no goal for people, for the gym goals. Hyrox as a format brings that. And it's very accessible for people. So I absolutely love it. I did a doubles, then I did a couple of singles for me to make sure I just don't speak about it in theory, and I understand the sport. So that's where we are, and we wanted to diversify our portfolio with respect to events and endurance fitness again. So this slots in really well. We saw a gap in the market when it comes to gym goers in India, and we are going to bring this to India.
Awesome. And just help me understand this a bit more. So I understand the fact that it's for gym goers, but this is also a competition, like something that similar to Ironman that happens at a global level where you're
Yeah,
competing, you kind of move up. Interesting.
yeah.
And how does that work?
So
Jeremy?
all said and done, it's not a workout; it's a race.
Hmm.
There's a start time, there's an end time, and there are a bunch of things you need to finish.
Hmm.
So you need to run 1 kilometer and then followed by one functional workstation,
Hmm.
then 1 kilometer again, and then workstation. So it's 8 1 kilometer runs. Okay. Alternating with a functional workstation. That workstation could be rowing for 1 kilometer, it could be pushing a sled for 50 meters, it could be carrying kettlebells for 200 meters. So there are 8 different workstations like that. So
Hmm.
you run 1 kilometer, finish a workstation, run 1 kilometer, finish a workstation. When you're done with all 8 runs and all 8 workstations, you reach a finish. So the time between the start to the end gives you a finish time. So that's the race and that's the format.
Nice. Okay. And this is again happening in a single location, or you can kind of compete from your respective places or something like that.
We host it. So we host it. It will be hosted in a venue, and everybody participates. And there are different categories. There are obviously age groups. You will primarily be categorized and slotted into your respective age groups.
Hmm.
So you will be competing against your people in other age groups, but mostly like in Ironman or like in any most things, you're competing against yourself, right? So you're doing this to sort of to improve where you are.
Hmm.
So, and then there are singles, which means you have to do the entire thing, right? You have to do all of those 1K run, one workstations 8 times. Then there is doubles, which means two people can tag team, uh, two men, two women, or mixed, doesn't matter. And both of them have to run the 8 kilometers, 1K, 1K, and things. But when you're doing the workstations, you can tag team, right? If you're pushing the sled for about 10 meters, you can tag the other person, that person takes over, you're just behind them encouraging. And so the part you can tag team, not obviously both of them push, right? One at a time, example. But the running, both of them have to do
So everybody
together.
does everything, but only in that workstation is where you split your work. But
You
the
can.
running.
I mean, one person is fit enough to want to do the whole thing. It's up to them. It's their strategy of what they want to do.
Okay.
But they can tag as many times as they want to. You want to push, and there are when you do lunges, you do squats, you do burpees, you do lots of things, right? So when you have to do 100 squats with a 6 kg medicine ball being thrown to a target, you can do five and then say, "Hey, come on, take over." You can do the next five. You can do 10. It's great. The atmosphere is great, and the partner is right there next to you, right? Just behind you, cheering you on. So that's a great format. So that's doubles, right? Then there is relay, which means four people
Mhm.
can form a team and do the relay. So what happens is you can choose any two workstations.
Mhm.
So four people have to do two workstations each and have to run 1 kilometer twice.
And twice, right? Okay.
That's it. And it doesn't have to be back to back. You can do one run and one workstation, go back to the transition area, somebody else takes over. It doesn't need to be like you have to do the first two and only the third and fourth by somebody else, right? It can be mixed and matched. And the entire team is then, together in the last workstation, they finish together. It could be a corporate thing where a bunch of people from corporates want to send 5 or 10 teams. It could be a family, it could be a bunch of friends, it could be a common gym partners whom you train with. Formats are great. So these are different formats. And there's also weight category where you could do the normal category or you could do the pro category where instead of carrying 24 kg kettlebells, you will have to carry 32 kg kettlebells
Hmm.
if you want to challenge yourself.
Right.
So, and men and women have slightly different weight and things in some areas.
This is almost like pardon the comparison, but this is almost like the T20s of endurance fitness in a way, right? Because I would assume
Absolutely.
it's done much faster in a much more kind of an enclosed environment, so to say.
It
And
is. And we do it in a completely indoor venue. It's an indoor sport, at least what we promote HYROX. And yes, like in any other country and things, there are a few similar, events which are going to pop up, copycat events which will be there. The format could be different. The venue structure could be different, but this one is an indoor venue and you have wave starts every 10 minutes. There are X amount of people starting the race and you get all the attention. There is music, there's lights, there's a lot of, everyone is like a rock star and everybody's being, pumped up to get through the entire process. And your family and friends can actually follow you through, not just in the run. They
Yeah.
can go so close to your workstation when you're doing it. They can see your workstation one, then run, then immediately go to the workstation two, cheer you on. Compared to other sports where you see them at the start, you see them at the finish, and maybe somewhere in between.
They're alone in that journey. Yeah, fair enough. And you have done a few high rocks races, you said,
Yes, I
competitions.
did a doubles one way back in February when we were still working with them and with their teams and the whole business part of it. And then after that, I did one in Australia and one in Singapore. So I've done two singles. I'm mostly a runner, as you can see. I'm not built for it, but one of the things, as much as people think about it, like this is for the people who are, seriously into bodybuilding and things. I want to very quickly clarify that this is still an endurance sport. It needs some strength, no doubt about it. There are a couple of workstations which need a good amount of brute strength, right? Doesn't matter how much willpower you have. It still takes something else to push something like 152 kilos for 50 meters, right? But I could work on it. I took 6 weeks to give myself for my first race and build that part of the strength. And that's why I feel it's more sustainable, more accessible. And you can train 3 or 4 times a week, 45 minutes a day, and you can still do this race. And compared to Ironman, weight a full or half, or even some of the other ones are a little more time demanding, equipment heavy sport, right? So that's where I feel this will go well.
Also, I like my own comparison. Then this is in a way a T20 of endurance fitness. But
Yeah, because the average time is an hour and 30 minutes of a finish line
the
for people.
whole thing is done in an
Whole
hour.
thing is done. The average finish time is an hour and 30. Some people take more, some people take less, but sort of, 1 hour 30 seems to be the average. But when the sport is new in some countries, maybe those averages would be, a few minutes slower. But you're talking about an hour and a half to 2 hours and your day is over. And also in a week or 2 weeks, you can do another race, right? It doesn't take that much time for your body and things like that compared to a full distance Ironman or a marathon and things like that. So that's why I like the sport a lot.
Absolutely. And so the follow-on question to that is when, two questions, in fact. So first question is when and how can one train? Is this something which Yoska is involved in training as well? For
Yeah, we will be putting out our training plans, but we'll also be working very closely with gyms and trainers because they are also more suited. Because we're trying to build an ecosystem where the training could be done in gyms, group workout classes in gyms. We're looking at an affiliation program, and trainers will also be certified as HYROX certified trainers, right? So we're building that entire education framework and reaching out to gyms and the communities so that the gyms can become affiliates. That way, if you're training for a high rocks, there could be 15 gyms in your suburb, but you could maybe pick one or two because now they're high rocks certified and they know what we are talking about.
have a certain
So
question.
that's one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when do you intend to have this as a as I mean, when will the competition happen? When is Yoska going to have the first high rocks competition in India? If you can.
2025, sort of in the first half of the 2025 is we're looking out to certain venues and cities. We'll have to obviously pick one city and launch this. So I think in the next month or two, we should be in a position to not only announce the city, but even potentially the date and open up registrations in the next month or two. So that's something we're very excited about of bringing the sport out here. But yeah, 2025 race is on, and we want to see how the runners take up the sport. I want to restate it. I think half of it is still running, right? Let the runners not forget it, right? Half of the race is running, 8 1 kilometers runs followed by 8 workstations, right? So half of it is still running, and even in those 8 workstations, a lot of it is doing lunges, squats, burpees, rowing, skiing is very much endurance fitness. There are two or three which will demand certain things, but it's not a, you need to be 90% bulked up, fully things for you to do the sport. That's something I don't want people to have that notion. And I'm not talking theory here. You're seeing me right now. You know me mostly as a runner and triathlete. And for me to put in a few weeks and ability to finish. And there is no cutoff times, unlike triathlon. You want to take your time, you can take your time. I took a lot of time finishing the lunges and some of those other workstations which were a bit more demanding because I was not strong in certain areas. But you get it done.
This itself seems a pretty exciting way to kind of open up a new, probably an extension to the folks who are already into the other forms of endurance fitness, but also sort of open it up for others, right? Because triathlon might seem like so high up there that you'll be like you might probably not want to take it up to begin with. But if you're started with small goals, here is an achievable T20 format, if I can use that again. Uh, awesome. So I I want to. We're almost getting to the concluding part of our podcast. So I'm tempted to ask you, like every 10 years there is a change that we see in Deepak, right? So you talked about the early 2000s when you kind of got on the journey of running and the marathons, and 2013 you branched off and started Yoska. That journey has been beautiful. 2023, 24, you're now adding something into the HYROX. So, are you seeing what's next? Are you seeing what is up there? Is there anything written on your post-it note about what is the next goal?
I think consolidating and whatever channels, we want to create as many channels and avenues for people to stay healthy and fit. So
Hmm.
even we bringing Ironman into it is, it's not about a few thousand people taking up the sport. It's about, will that inspire somebody to take up walking, running, and eat better types. So we wanted to bring that. So Hyrox was next step. What we've also done on our app and training part and our app-based solution, that's going to see a big, expansion into a few other, not necessarily areas, but just trying to get something going there. So that's currently my focus. But if you look at all of the three key parts of app-based training business, the Ironman and Hyrox being sort of our event business, right now that's a handful. It's about right now finding the right team, the right talent to constantly focus on that. But yeah, as a personal thing, I definitely want to get better at triathlon and Ironman and Hyrox and everything else for me as a person, as an athlete. But as an entrepreneur and business owner, I think something will come along. If it comes, we will chase hard. For now, it's about making each of these things stronger and making this more accessible for people, and continue to keep nudging them towards. Have you looked at this? Have you tried this? And I think the next 10 years will be about growing these, and who knows, it could be another extension of something. But right now, nothing on the cards, nothing on the wall, other than making each of these things bigger, and me personally getting better and taking better care of myself.
Wonderful, wonderful. And the second part of the question was, I mean, you men are obviously probably a bit more prominent in terms of the numbers you called out. You're working on getting women more involved in this, and kudos to you on your goal of getting to 25-28%. Anything for children? How do we catch them young? How do we get them motivated very early on?
Yeah, look, Iron Kids is something which we have launched in Goa. Now,
A
thanks, I
brand,
think
or
one of
Iron Kids exists as a brand?
Iron Kids exists as a brand, and we have done two Iron Kids Goa event in 22 and 23. We'll be doing one more in 24. And the idea is to take Iron Kids, to a few more cities nationally. And this is for 6 to 16-year-olds.
Hmm.
And it could involve just running, or swimming and running, swimming, cycling and running and cycling. So various formats. And the swim could be in a swimming pool, right? And most likely will be in a swimming pool. And very varying formats and distances. It could be, we're talking about 100 meters of swimming and 1 kilometer running for somebody who's aged 6 to 9 years old.
Right.
right? 10 to 12 years old could be doing a bit more, and 14 to 16 could be doing a bit more. But we're still talking about 300 meters of swim and 3 kilometers running,
Mm.
and maybe 5 to 6 kilometers of cycling if you want to do the triathlon portion of it. So keeping it flexible and building a strong foundation early on,
Mm.
trying to get kids thinking a bit more on this. Maybe build some good habits at the beginning, get them away from screens for a certain portion of the day, and in turn, I'm sure parents were already active in this. Will continue to already encouraging. They're already doing their they're doing all of the things to. But we are trying to create an event or a race around this. So that's going to be our focus, and maybe that for us is the next 10 year, like you said in the previous one. This is something which we know will take time because there is always that focus of academics and the balance. But parents right now have been extremely supportive of putting people onto extracurriculars, sports, team sports, arts, music, lots of things. So we definitely see this as something which the parents and the kids alike will get into it. That's definitely going to be our focus areas for the next few years.
We wish you the very, very best on this journey. I think the you're already in a Deepak Raj 3.0. So the next time we meet on the Kulkarnis, I'm pretty sure there'll be a Deepak Raj 4.0, which would have something new and something more exciting. You want any special call out for the Iron Man in Goa to our audience?
Yeah, the Ironman Goa is on 27th of October. Registrations for both individuals and relays are still open. Have a look at that. There's going to be Iron Kids Goa and very soon on HYROX and everything else. So the community has been supportive to us for a number of years, and that I know will continue. But yeah, happy to see any more people who are keen. Check out our website, check out the Ironman Goa website, and we'll see you at the start line, and also at the finish line. So yeah, thanks once again, Sanjeev.
Our viewers, if you're listening in and if you're keen, tune in. At least this year might, if you think you're still too early for Ironman, at least show the interest. Be there to support them, understand how it goes, reach out to Yoska, and hopefully one day you will be an Ironman as well. Deepak, any message that you want to give our viewers who, from an endurance fitness perspective, or anyone who's considering to be fit? What is the message?
Take that first step. It could be walking, it could be sleeping better, it could be drinking enough water, it could be things, right? I know the question is more on endurance fitness, but I think it's more about health and fitness, right? So I think that take that first step. If you've already done those and you're looking for something, pace yourself, literally using the word, pace yourself with your goals, write them down, break them down into smaller things, reward yourself reward yourself when you meet even the smallest of goals. Okay, so that it keeps the motivation going. Surround yourself with people who are supportive of that. They don't need to be exactly the same persona of everything around you. You just need somebody who's going to be there, and continue to write goals, tick them, keep ticking them, and but at the same time, listen to your body, listen to all the signs you're going to get, and yeah, don't rush into taking that big step, and then it'll put you a few steps back. So just pace yourself, break down the goals, reward yourself, um, pick up habits which you can sustain and maintain that than trying to go very outlandish with this.
Wonderful advice. And two things that really stuck onto me was pace yourself and reward yourself. So important. Sometimes we either outpace ourselves or don't reward ourselves enough. So awesome words. Deepak, we want to thank you so very much for taking this time with us and educating us on your journeys and all the exciting activities that you have done. As we like to call it on our podcast, educating us about your cool karnis or your cool deeds, and that is the essence of our podcast, the Cool Karnis. We wish you the very, very best in all your endeavors, and hope to have you back here on the Cool Karnis with your next journey. Thank you so much, Deepak.
Thanks, Sanjeev, for the opportunity and the platform, and great work in what you're trying to do with respect to this. And again, meeting old friends and colleagues from our Infosys days, and what better way to sort of, our paths have intersected in various ways in addition to keeping in touch. So thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for the community, which has been super supportive to us with respect to what we are doing. And yeah, I would love to come back to you at certain times, and good luck with everything what you're doing, Sachin.